So I'm going to show you how to make apple butter today. It's so easy, and you'll notice that I've got two different kinds of apples. I've got Gala apples, the red apples, and then the yellow ones are sweet opal apples. I'm going to use both kinds, and you'll see that I have washed them, but I have not peeled them. And I'm going to keep them not peeled. I like to keep the peeling on because it adds more flavor and it thickens up the apple butter. And it saves a lot of time, so you don't have to peel a ton of apples. So I've got about 15 apples here. I'm just going to chop them up pretty quickly. And I try to put them into, I try to chop them rather small so that I can fit them pretty easily into my crock pot. And usually what I end up having to do, I can usually fit about 13 in there, and then after it has started cooking down for about an hour, then I'll come back and I'll add the other two if I can't fit them in there. So, so I'm just going to chop them up into little pieces and then put them in my crock pot bowl. So I've got my crock pot insert. This is an 8 quart, I think it's 8 quart. It's either 7 or 8 quart. It's enough to make, I don't know, I guess it ends up being about 6 quarts of apple butter when it's all said and done, because it, it cooks down a little bit. But it's so much faster to, like I said, it's so much faster to do it like this instead of peeling all of your apples. You can use any type of apple that you like. These are sweet apples. I think last year, if I made it last year, I think I used some Granny Smith, which those are good to use because they're sour, and so, it ends up actually tasting more like apple pie. I always use Granny Smith apples when I make my apple pie because of, adding the sugar. But these apples were on sale, both the Gala and the Sweet Opal. They were on sale at Fred Meyer for $1.49 a pound, which is really good. The apples here lately have been, gosh, I think I've been paying about $2.99, $3.29 a pound, just depending on what kind you get. And that's not organic. I very rarely buy organic because it's so much more expensive. I just wash my stuff really good. You just can't, I don't know, I buy so much fruit and vegetables that it would really add up if I got organic. So like I was saying, you can use any kind you want. I've used Honeycrisp before. Like I said, I've used Granny Smith. Those are really good to use because the sugar that you'll be adding. And so I'm going to do 15 apples with the peel. These are pretty good size apples. Now the Gala ones are a little bigger than the opals, but they're pretty good size apples. They're definitely not lunchbox size. So it'll end up going to the top. Once I chop everything up, my entire crock pot is going to be full of apples. So to that, once I'm done chopping everything, I'm going to end up putting in 2.5 cups of sugar. So I do 2 cups of white sugar and then 1/2 cup of brown sugar. And what I've got today is light brown sugar. You can use all white sugar if you want. Now, if you want to use all brown sugar, you're definitely going to want to decrease your amount of sugar because I think that would be I've not tried that. I don't know, it might be good. I haven't tried it, but brown sugar being a lot sweeter, I would think that you would need to decrease the amount of sugar. So anyway, so I'm doing 2 cups of white sugar, 1/2 cup of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and then a 3/4 teaspoon of cloves. That's just this recipe. If you want to add, and actually I have done it differently too, when I make pear butter, I use the same amount of cinnamon, but I also add, surprise, cardamom, because I like cardamom so much. You can add cardamom to your apple butter too, if you want. Ginger would be good. Nutmeg. Just whatever you like, you know, but definitely you want the cinnamon in there. And then the very last special ingredient, the magic ingredient, a box of Red Hots. So this is 5.5 ounces of Red Hots. So my mama made apple butter all the time. I remember my favorite things that she canned were beets, pickled beets, and apple butter. And she always had some jars, or a couple jars that she would give to me when I would go down to see her in Virginia. And I remember when she started adding Red Hots to her apple butter, and I have the memory like it was yesterday. I was sitting at her table eating it, and she looked at me and she smiled and she said, "Do you taste that difference?" And I didn't know what it was, but it was good. And then she told me that, she said, "That's Red Hots. I put Red Hots in it." So when I started making apple butter a couple years ago, obviously, I put Red Hots in it. So you don't have to add the Red Hots. I know some people are a little particular about red food dye and stuff like that. I think I made one batch without apple butter, or without Red Hots, but I prefer it in there. If for no other reason than sentimental reasons. So it really is good. Anybody that I have given my apple butter to has talked about how good it is. And so I tell them it's Red Hots that makes the difference. So anyway, so that's the ingredients. So I've got about half of my, I'm going to do one more apple, and I'll have half of my crock pot full of chopped apples. And so once I get this apple chopped up and added in there, I've already got my sugar and my spices measured out in a bowl, and I'll just dump it on top of what I've got chopped, and then I will chop the rest of my apples and add it in there. Since this is going to be full, literally all the way to the top, it'll be so much easier to just add the sugar in the middle, and then once it cooks down, I'll be stirring it a couple times throughout the evening before we go to bed. And then when I get up in the morning, I'll obviously give it a big stir. But it's just easier to incorporate it. Instead of dumping all of your sugar on top and then trying to mix it, you end up with a mess. Okay, so there's my, let me see if I can show you here. So I've got some of my apples, half of my apples chopped up in there. And now I'm gonna add my sugars. So 2 cups of white sugar, a half a cup of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, and 3/4 of a teaspoon of cloves. Or like I said, whatever spices you would like. So now I'll show you. So I've dumped my sugar in there on top of the apples that I've already chopped. And I'm just gonna kind of give it a little shake like that. I'm not really worried about mixing it up too much right now. Just everything is gonna cook down so much that it's not gonna matter how well I stir it right now. Okay, so now I'm gonna do the rest of my apples. And as I said in the beginning, I probably won't be able to get all of these put in the crock pot until about an hour or so after everything has cooked on low. You could also do this in the morning, start it in the morning and then have it ready by the end of the day or at night. I like to do it at night or late afternoon, because when I can it, I'm going to want my apple butter to be hot when I put it into the jars. So what I made last night, it's still in the crock pot. I've kept it on warm because it finished this morning before we went to church. But I haven't, I'm gonna show you the last step before I can it, which will be taking care of the peels. Since I left the peel on there, I'm gonna use my immersion blender to just go in and smooth it out really good. So, I mean, this really is super easy. And you can see, I mean, it just saves so much time not peeling your apples. It really saves a ton of time. And like in Thanksgiving, whenever I was doing pies when I was baking and selling pies out of my house, apple pies were one of my least favorite because of having to peel so many apples. It just gets frustrating. So, I think the first batch of apple butter, the first couple batches of apple butter that I made, I was peeling my apples, and then I got sick and tired of that. And I just thought, you know, I'm gonna keep the apples on there. And not that apple butter is healthy because of all of the sugar, but at least the peels have some vitamins and lots of flavor and pectin too. So it really does keep your apple butter thick. I like the taste of just about every apple butter that anybody has given me, but I do prefer mine to be on the thicker side, so instead of runny. So having the peels on there definitely helps for it to stay thicker instead of runnier. There are some apple butter recipes on the internet that have quite a bit more sugar than mine. I think if you were using a more tart or a sour apple, then you would want to use more than just 2.5 cups of sugar. I really don't know how many pounds of apples this is. It's just 15 large apples, or whatever will fit into, I know there are some the Honey Crisp apples that are super big, that are bigger even than these Gala apples. So like with apples that size, you may only need 11. So I guess I should have measured out how many pounds it is, but I just go by seeing what I can fit into the crock pot. So if you have a 7 or 8 quart crock pot, it's going to be about 13 to 15 large apples. Just kind of go by look, see what fits. Pear butter, I really enjoy doing pear butter. It's got a good flavor, and that one too, I don't bother peeling. Which I suppose keeping the peels on too, that may be one less apple you have to buy, because by the time you take all the peels off of your apples, there's a whole nother apple right there for you. Anybody that knows me knows that I am pretty thrifty, frugal, however you want to put it. I kind of feel like you have to be living up here because stuff is so much more expensive. Like anytime we go down to the lower 48 to visit, I remember a couple years ago we went down there and I just wanted to cry because avocados were 99 cents. And I thought, gosh, what I would give to pay only 99 cents for an avocado, when I think last time I looked at them up here, they were like 2 for $5. And that's not even the great big avocados. That's, you know, I love avocados, but I don't buy them as often as I used to when I lived in Kentucky, because they are a lot more up here. But generally, all of our produce is a lot more up here. So I do have a few apple trees, but they didn't do that good this year. And actually, I don't think they did that good last year either. We had such a rainy summer this year. I've got 2 plum trees, which gave me 1 plum that was the size of a grape. But I'm actually kind of happy about that because I've had those plum trees since we moved into our house about 7 years ago. So I've had those plum trees for 6 or 7 years, and I finally got a plum on one of them. My cherry tree did pretty good. I think I got enough cherries to make a pie. I let the boys pick them and just told them they could eat whatever they picked. I was just too busy doing other stuff to worry about. And they're sour cherries. They would be good for a pie, but I don't know. I didn't have time to really pick cherries, and then I don't usually make pie in the summer. I always wait until Thanksgiving before I make one. So I didn't have time to, you know, pick a bunch of cherries, wash them, hit them, and then freeze them for a pie for this Thanksgiving. And then I've got 2 apple trees, and my apple trees did not produce. One tree didn't give me anything this year, and the other one, I think I may have gotten 2 apples, but they didn't ripen, and they were super small. They were about, like, maybe like that. So I would need like 15 of my trees to have enough apples to make 1 crock pot of apple butter. I don't know. We'll be patient. Maybe next summer will be a little bit better. If not, then again, you know, may not even have good luck next summer. At the end of this past summer, I caught a moose chewing on one of my apple trees. So there goes that. I'll probably never get another apple from it. I should have been happy with the 2 that I got, because Mama Moose. Okay, well, actually, it looks like I got all of those apples fit into my crock pot. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick, and then I'll show you. So I'm not gonna bother stirring. I went ahead and, like I said, I put all of my sugar and spices in between apple layers. So I will put, you can see this is full. So that's a 8-quart crock pot insert. And I'll be right back. I'm just getting the lid to put on it. So, and then I've got my other batch that I made last night that I'm going to run my immersion blender through. So, and I'll show you last night's batch. It's very runny, but that's okay. It's always like that. So you'll see it's, so it cooked down quite a bit. There's about 1.5 inches space from what I made. So now, in order to take care, I'm not going to be able to just, obviously I wouldn't be able to just mash it with a potato masher or something like that because of the peels. So to smooth it out, I've got my immersion blender. And usually Ivan likes to do this part, and I asked him if he wanted to help me today, but he wasn't interested. So I think tomorrow he will help me. He'll use the blender on today's batch to get it ready to can tomorrow. So with one of these immersion blenders, pretty much self-explanatory, you know. You just, I'm gonna put it all the way at the bottom, because if I do it at the top, then you're gonna have everything fly everywhere. So, just like that. It really doesn't take long to do this part. Made a mistake. I said not to do. You always want to have your blender all the way immersed into your liquid, or else, like, you're gonna have a mess to clean up. Luckily, I caught myself before that happened. Okay, I've got just a couple little pieces stuck in here, but for the most part, it's pretty smooth. I'll get these little chunks out of here and run it one more time. And you know what? If there's little teeny tiny chunks in there, that's okay. I'm not selling this. I'm going to be giving it away as gifts and then keeping a lot of it for us too. So my family doesn't mind little tiny bits of chunks that are not completely smoothed. Obviously, if you were selling it, you would want a uniform product and you would want it to be nice and smooth. But for just us and for gifts, I don't think it really matters. All right. So that was easy, and I feel like it makes it worth saving your time on, not peeling all of your apples. So let me get a spoon and I'll show you the consistency. So my next step will be, so this is pretty thick. I mean, it's, you know, pretty good. So my next step will be putting this, portioning it out into my little jars. I've got several different size jars. I've got the size that I'm going to give away for gifts, and then some bigger ones that I'll keep for just us, for breakfasts and dinner and whatever else. So it really doesn't get any easier than that. I hope that, that if you've never made apple butter, I hope you try. It really is worth it. And if you think, well, I don't want to go through the trouble of canning, I've never canned anything, that's not that hard either. I taught myself how to do that just by watching some YouTube videos and reading a few little websites on how to do that. So I hope you give it a try. You don't have to make a big batch if you're concerned about not wanting to can and having too much in your refrigerator and not wanting it to go bad. Don't worry about that. If you have a smaller crock pot, then make half a batch. So, but I do hope that you try it out. Hope everybody's doing good. Thank you for watching my video. And if you have any questions, just send me a message. Take care.